I love Star Wars, like, a lot. And I grew up with the prequels, and I understand not everybody likes those movies. And that is a fair criticism. However, I think that is what is so great about Star Wars. There's something for everyone. I thought I'd give my thoughts and feelings about the overall show because this is a Star Wars channel and I wanted to challenge myself a little bit and make a different type of video than my normal collectible reviews. I'll be going over my thoughts and feelings over the entire show, talking about each episode, the characters, the plot, and overall how the public perceived this Star Wars project. And of course, this all means spoilers, so keep that in mind, and without further ado, these are my thoughts and feelings on Star Wars: The Acolyte. To start off the video, I think it's hard to pass over just how hyped a lot of people were for this show. It was one of the most anticipated projects announced in a long time, and for me, it was right behind Ahsoka in terms of what I was hyped for that had been announced. The time leading up to this project was full of other Star Wars series, such as the final season of The Bad Batch, and of course, Ahsoka. Now, it's hard not to bring up the controversy that follows The Acolyte, but does the controversy make the show bad? No, that's not what made the show bad. At least to me, I attempted to go into The Acolyte blind with no outside forces attempting to sway my opinions. Of course, with the modern age with the internet, I realized that was impossible. But no matter what I heard or read or anything anyone had said, I continued to tell myself, until I watched the show for myself, I shouldn't form an opinion because I literally have not watched the show. And that's what I did. So let's go over episode 1. The Acolyte starts off by introducing us to an opening text that is a little different than the traditional Star Wars crawl, which I did like, and I thought it fit pretty well with the Star Wars aesthetic. We are introduced to a new planet with a masked character in search of someone. This someone is a Jedi. She finds the Jedi in question at a bar and a fight ensues. The Jedi barely had to use her lightsaber at the start of the fight, but then the character uses a bystander as bait and is able to kill the Jedi Master. Immediately after the fight, it cuts to the same character on a ship with a droid. She is obviously some sort of mechanic on this ship, and it also has Nemoidians, which is pretty cool, you know, like the Newt Gunray guys. It was kind of neat to see those guys again. But more Jedi end up boarding this ship in search of this girl. She's being blamed for the murder of a Jedi, and she says she didn't do it. Immediately, I assume that there are twins or possibly a changeling like in episode 2, but those are just my thoughts. We learn that the mechanic girl's name is Osha, and one of the Jedi tells us her backstory. The Jedi still take Osha into custody and blame her for Master Undara's murder. It's also implied Osha used to be a Jedi. Now, after this introduction, it's pretty apparent that these two girls are totally gonna be twins, or a shapeshifter like in episode 2. These were pretty apparent from early on. After we learn about our main character Osha, we cut to the Jedi Temple and meet Master Soul. Oh boy, Master Soul. This character was my favorite by far in the entire show. The actor's performance and how he gave life to the role really got me into his character and I was hooked. We are also introduced to a new High Council member, Venestra. It seems that she's basically going to play the role of Yoda in this show in terms of where she places in the council and her power. She tells Soul about his friend's death and tells him his old Padawan Osha killed her. It is clear Soul is emotionally attached to his Padawan, and he somewhat plays the role of a Qui-Gon Jinn clone in this aspect, or at least that's what the director was obviously going for. The Jedi set out to go get Osha before the Senate finds out that there was a rogue Jedi out killing people, and the Jedi have to cover this up. Osha escapes on the ship and crash lands on a planet where Master Soul and his group of Jedi start to search for her. We get glimpses of a flashback of flames throughout the episode. A girl that looks exactly like Osha shows up and it is confirmed to be Osha's sister. thought to have died in a fire when they were twins when they were very young. At the end of the episode, a voice narrates over a scene of Osha's twin walking somewhere, and we see a character that looks honestly a lot like an Inquisitor or even a Knight of Ren, and he activates his lightsaber, and the episode is over. This introduction to the show was pretty interesting, and to be honest, I thought it was fine. Nothing amazing, nothing awful, just an okay introduction, and the second episode, honestly, not a lot happens. Episode 2 shows Osha's twin going after another Jedi who she is still trying to kill. Also, I should mention that the twin, she's trying to assassinate a Jedi without having to use a weapon to prove herself to her master. This must be some like rite of passage that she has to do to become an acolyte or a Padawan to the guy with the lightsaber. Master Sol has Osha aboard his ship, and they are now on the hunt for Osha's sister. They find a planet that she is on because Sol thinks Osha's twin is hunting down specific Jedi from their past. The next closest Jedi in question is in a state of suspended meditation and hasn't left this state in quite some time. When Sol and Osha approach the planet, we get to know some of the other Jedi on his crew and how they think of Osha. They definitely think Osha is still guilty, and it's hard to believe that there happens to be a twin doing all the things she's doing. We also know that Sol was present during the fire that burnt down Osha's home, and Sol also tells us Osha's twin's name, May. They get to the Jedi Master, and his name is Torben, and they heighten up security. This guy, he looks a little funny, I'm not gonna lie. He's got that mega receding hairline, but he also looks like he's 22, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. But while the Jedi and Osha are heightening up security, we see May meet up with a character named Chimere. He's kind of like a dirty street rat urchin looking guy, or so he appears, and it seems that he and May are both trying to win favor of the Dark Masters, what I'm going to refer to him as. They come up with a scheme to poison the Jedi, because I guess Chimere and May don't think poison counts as a weapon. Later that night, May sneaks into the temple where Torben is, and she actually gets him to wake up, or come out of suspended meditation, and she tells him to face the past and do what must be done. It must have been something pretty bad, because he just takes the poison and kills himself, but not before he says, "I thought we were doing the right thing," and then he drinks the poison. After that, a fight breaks out after he dies. Sol comes in to fight May, and other Jedi now realize Osha is innocent because they now realize there is a twin, and they now have trust in Osha. May and Chimere head to the forest planet next to find the next Jedi. This happens to be a Wookiee Jedi, and this is where the episode ends. Now, this Wookiee character, is named Kalnaka. Kalnaka was used in the promotional material, and they even showed the character off at Star Wars celebrations to build hype. This also, I should mention, is where the show begins its weekly episodes. We got episodes 1 and 2 together for the release of the show, but now we have to wait a week in between episodes. Everyone was extremely hyped to see this Wookiee Jedi in action. I was too, and I couldn't wait. This episode opens with a flashback. Actually, spoiler, the whole episode is a flashback, and this was a big deal because a lot of people were expecting to see Kalnaka, the Wookiee, but I guess not yet. Also, I should mention, this show is 8 episodes long, so people were starting to get worried about the pacing of the show, considering at this point, the next episode is the halfway point. And we really don't have the plot down yet, but let's get back to the story of episode 3. We learn that Osha and May were born on a planet of witches, kind of like Dathomir, except we really don't learn anything about them, except they have a ritual they do, and they say, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
And yeah, it's a little cringy, but if I'm being honest, it's just some form of ritual of rite of passage. The witches give a mark of their coven to May when they perform the ritual, and when they're about to give it to Osha, the Jedi ship appears, It is very noticeable that Osha did not look like she wanted to take part in this ritual. The mothers of the coven tell the Jedi to leave, but the Jedi insist if there are children, then they have the right to test the children for the Force. And a younger Master Soul in this flashback feels something awful is going to happen to the twins if they stay. Now this paints the Jedi in a bad light because in the Clone Wars and other pieces of Star Wars media, the Jedi do kind of just show up and be like, yeah, when he's a little older, we're going to take the kid. So the Jedi aren't 100% good, and they never have been though. But the Jedi do end up testing the girls, and they were told to lie to the Jedi by the mothers. May does lie during the test, however, Osha breaks, and it's obviously she wanted to join the Jedi. Soul tells her if she wanted to, she can come with. Osha tells the mothers that even though Osha tells the mothers that she wants to go with the Jedi, even though she is saddened by this, the mother is actually okay with Osha leaving, showing us that at least the one mother is not actually evil. There are two mothers, and the other one seems a bit more defensive. May, however, learns about her sister wanting to leave, and this makes May furious. She locks Osha in her room, and she starts a fire. Soul sees the fire and comes in to the rescue and sees both the girls eventually escaping the main room. They're on like these two bridges that are broken, standing on opposite sides of a burning bridge. May falls, Osha falls, and Soul is there just in time to grab Osha and save her. This was kind of weird. Like May just burning down the entire building with everybody inside, trying to kill her own sister just because she wanted to leave, is a bit ridiculous. Even if they are kids, murder and fires are a bit much. It came across as very rushed emotions. I mean, like it was instant. We also get to see a glimpse of young Kalnaka and the other Jedi, so that was cool. We did get to see the Wookiee. But in the end, Soul saved Osha, and May was believed to have perished in the fire when she fell, and all the other witches, including the mothers, they also died. But that was episode 3, so some stuff did happen. On to episode 4. We are now officially at the halfway point in the show, and we still honestly don't have a lot of direction. All we know is May is going to kill these Jedi who were present during the day. She burned down her own village, and Osha and Soul are trying to stop her. The show is pointing towards that this is going to be the entire plot of the show, and a lot of people were hoping for more dark side. That was the whole purpose of the show, and even when the director said on multiple occasions, saying that we're going to be exploring more of the Sith and what the dark side is all about in this show, but we're halfway through, and we still haven't learned anything new about the dark side. But I digress. Episode 4. This episode was the beginning of some big controversies with canon and characters. There was a lot of buzz going around. The Jedi Council is starting to get worried that this Acolyte is killing too many Jedi, and the word's going to get out to the Senate. However, a certain Jedi, you may have heard of him, by the name of Ki-Adi-Mundi, shows up and gives us a little bit of information. Now, a lot of people got upset that he is even in this show, because that would make him extremely old, and this is what people got mad over at first. It is. And it's a bit ridiculous to be mad over that. If you Google his age and how old a species lives, yes, it says he would not be able to be alive in this show and The Phantom Menace. This show, by the way, takes place 100 years before The Phantom Menace. But that's a little overreactive to be upset at. But if you were to Google that information, yes, it gives you information and it does tell you how old a species lives, but that information is based on legends. If that's the only piece, I'm okay with them changing that as long as it's okay. You know, it doesn't ruin the story. So I don't mind that. But the other issue that people kind of got upset about breaking canon is that it is Ki-Adi-Mundi and not some other random Jedi, because since Ki-Adi-Mundi is present during The Phantom Menace and this possible hunt for a Sith, that raises some questions, considering his character in The Phantom Menace says the Sith have been extinct for over a millennia. He says something like that, and so how could this be canon if he says that? Well, technically, Ki-Adi-Mundi never sees the Sith, and May is never confirmed to be a Sith. And spoiler for the ending of the show, the head of the Jedi Council, she ends up making up a cover story for what happens in the end to tell all the Jedi and the Senate. So she blames it on someone else that isn't even a Sith, so technically it's fine. It works its way around not breaking canon, and it's fine. It just got really close to breaking it, and I think that made some people upset, but I think it was taken a little bit too far. I don't think that had anything to do with the greater story. I think we're fine with all the stuff with Ki-Adi-Mundi in it. I don't find that bad. And those are my opinions. You know, other people can have other opinions. That's fine. I get it. But at least for me, it's not that big of a deal. Now on to the exciting part. May and Kamir get to the planet Kalnaka is on to kill him. As they are searching, Sol and Osha also arrive on the planet to attempt to protect Kalnaka. And the Jedi bring along a little otter rodent tracker guy thing who helps them hunt down May. And while searching for Kalnaka, May arrives to a hut, like a little tree building, and goes in. And Kalnaka is sitting in a chair. And when they turn the chair, Kalnaka is dead. He has a big lightsaber cut across his chest. This right here, this hit me, and not in a good way. This character was used in everything promotional for this show. They constantly hyped him up at Star Wars Celebration. And the first scene that we see of him, besides the flashback, he's dead in a chair. I mean, I was shocked because, like, a Wookiee Jedi, you know, we've only seen one of these. That was Gunji, and that was animated and a kid. I was ready to see a full-grown Wookiee kick some butt, but obviously that wasn't going to happen. As May turns the chair around and sees Kalnaka as dead, she's terrified that her master is the one that killed Kalnaka, so she gets very scared and defensive right away. Sol and the team arrive to arrest her, and out of the shadows comes a masked figure who is May's master. He activates the lightsaber. All the Jedi do as well. It was pretty cool seeing all those lightsabers, but he does a force push, and then the episode ends. Seeing all the lightsabers was pretty cool, but there were more letdowns than there were gains to this episode for sure. In my opinion, episode 5 by far is the best episode of the show. We start off immediately with a fight between the Jedi and the Dark Master. I'm not going to call him a Sith because he's not been referred to one yet, and we really don't know if he is or not at this point. We finally get some awesome, fast-paced fighting with lightsabers like in the prequels, and it was an absolute treat to watch that fight. I loved the fights in this episode. We also find out that the Dark Master's helmet is made of a very special material where when a lightsaber comes in contact with it, the lightsaber shuts off. That's pretty cool. He also has like an arm guard that does it as well. The Dark Master takes on the Jedi. He starts killing them one by one, overwhelming them. Sol then starts to fight the Dark Master and breaks off as Yorn takes Osha back to the ship, and Sol holds off the Master while they do. It's implied that Sol senses something familiar about this guy, but he can't put his finger on it. And while they continue to fight, Jackie starts to fight May in Kalnaka's home, and Jackie is actually able to subdue her pretty quickly, even though she's just a Padawan. She's very skilled, I think, for her age, and I do like the character's design. I like the more alien stuff in Star Wars, so I was glad they started to do more of that. And while she is subduing May, Jackie is actually intercepted by the Dark Master, who is trying to save May, and he was able to, like, Batman disappear. Like, you know, you look down and look back up, he's gone from the Sol fight, and he shows up to fight Jackie. Obviously, Jackie was not going to win this fight. However, she does hold him off for a good amount of time using her and the now fallen Kalnaka's lightsaber, but he overpowers Jackie, and then he proceeds to stab her 3 times in the chest with his lightsaber. That was pretty brutal, and I was not expecting Jackie to die in this show. And while all of this is happening, Osha and Yorn, they don't want to leave their friends behind. They're sensing bad things are happening. So the planet that they're on have like these big insects that are attracted to light. So they're able to draw them all back to Sol fighting the Dark Master. And while they're fighting, I'll also mention, Sol is able to knock his helmet off, thus revealing who he is. And it was actually Kamir all along, the dirty street rat. And This was an interesting choice because it seemed a little odd since his character was kind of used comedically, and he always appeared to be weak, but that also let him hide in plain sight this whole time, so that worked pretty well. As Osha and Yorn show up, Kamir gets a hold of Yorn, looks at Sol and Osha, and then proceeds to snap Yorn's neck in front of all of them. This dude is brutal. Like, he's killing everybody in brutal ways in this show. And Kamir also does refer to himself as a Sith in this scene. So there's also that. Osha turns and sees May, and she's able to stun her quickly with like this big stun gun shotgun thing. And as she approaches her sister, Sol and Kamir start to have like a hand-to-hand combat scene. That was also really, really fun to watch. This was the episode I was waiting for. And as Sol is about to kill Kamir, Osha stops him. She doesn't want him to turn to the dark side. Sol backs off. Kamir activates his lightsaber. When he does, Osha also throws her little droid that she has and turns a light on, and it makes all the insects appear, grabbing Kamir, flying off with him. And during the commotion, May and Osha find each other separated from everyone. May tricks Osha, knocks her out. They swap clothes. May leaves Osha behind on the planet with Kamir, and she jumps on Sol's ship, pretending to be her. I'm not gonna lie to you, after the amazing episode 5 we just got, this episode is pretty slow. And I mean slow. Honestly, not a lot happens. Osha wakes up and she finds May's clothes. She wanders around the island she's on, and she sees Kamir, and the dude's just taking a bath, and then they discuss philosophy with each other. And May is on board Sol's ship. She's still pretending to be Osha. The little otter rodent guy, I think his name is Basil. He smells something isn't right, literally, with Osha, and realizes it's not her. But since the guy can't speak, he's got to like investigate and prove it's her. Sol sends out a distress signal to the Jedi Council. Venestra grabs a team of Jedi and heads out to find him. They go to the planet, they look around, they don't see him. May sends her and Sol into hyperspeed, barely missing the rescue team. Sol starts to have a conversation with May, still thinking it's Osha, and she starts to reveal some information from the past. Maybe not everything we know is true about the flashbacks that we've seen, but we've seen them a couple times now. But Sol realizes it isn't May, he subdues her, and he gets her locked down, and the episode ends. Like I said, not a lot happens in this episode after that banger of an episode 5. So, another flashback episode. This time though, it is a little different. It's from the viewpoint of the Jedi who are going to the witch planet, not from the daughters. We see all of the Jedi May has assassinated in this flashback, and they arrive to the Coven. Sol finds out that the witches have 2 children, and he wants to save them, and he wants them to be tested. Yeah, we already went over this stuff. Like I said, it's the same thing by like 80%. Let's talk about the 20% that's new. When the fire starts, I guess it was actually an accident by May. And it continues to burn down the temple, and Sol and Torben go in to save the girls. Now, this is a new scene we haven't seen, but when Sol and Torben go into the Coven, the 2 mothers are there. They're protecting the other witches and the daughters, and like I said before, one of the mothers, peaceful, the other, not so much. When they all meet face to face, they hear Osha screaming because of the fire, and when Sol hears this, he looks at the mother. The peaceful mother does this thing where she evaporates, kind of like she's disappearing into the air. It's kind of like a Mother Talzin thing from the Clone Wars. Sol didn't know what the heck was going on, and she scared him, so he stabs her with his lightsaber and kills her. And she falls into Sol's hands. The mother dies in his arms, and she says she was just going to protect May. She was going to let Osha go with him, because it's what she wanted. And that really hurt Sol, you could see, and May witnessed the whole thing. But Osha didn't see any of it because she was still stuck in that burning room. May runs off. After she does, Osha is able to escape the room. The other mother is now fighting off the Jedi, and the Jedi ship comes to drop off the other members of the Jedi party, and you hear a Wookiee in the background, and you're like, oh, okay, Kalnaka, cool, we're finally going to see him do something. and the more evil mother possesses Kalnaka. Now that's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. I want to see the Wookiee fight. It's not exactly how I thought it would happen, but we're gonna see it. And Sol and Torben now have to face Kalnaka. It was a pretty cool fight. The super powerful Wookiee Jedi, he was jumping around, swinging super powerful lightsaber blows. It was fun to see for sure. The other Jedi show up and they're able to save Kalnaka from possession. And when they unpossess him, all the other witches kind of die. So that was kind of weird. But the biggest difference with Osha and May at the bridge is you see them reaching out for each other. There's the two sides of the bridge. The middle's collapsed. Osha and May are reaching their hands out. May falls, Osha falls, and then you just see Sol's hand reach out and grab Osha. Well, what actually happened was Sol was off to the side, and he was using the Force to hold up the bridges, and he couldn't hold it up much longer, and we find out Sol actually chose to drop May and then run up and grab Osha. So he chose to let May fall to her death. So that was a pretty big difference. And we all thought, May died after that. But of course she didn't. The Jedi get Osha aboard the ship, and the Jedi start fighting in between themselves, infighting, all that fun stuff. They tell the council that May burned down the fortress and everyone was lost. But Sol said he wanted to face the council for his mistakes, but the other Jedi, they were like, hey, you can't do that. You made us go in there to save the girl. You made the choice to save Osha, and you got to be there for her. And that was the end of the episode. And there's one episode left, and to be honest, we still don't know a lot of stuff, and we don't have a lot of time left. So at this point in time, I was a little bit worried, and a lot of other people were as well, because we have no idea how this show's going to end. We're back to Osha being with Kamir and May being restrained with Sol. Kamir lets Osha wear his helmet. It's like some sort of force deprivation chamber helmet thing that she puts on, and she almost gets possessed by the dark side, it seems. She also sees May killing Sol. It's like a vision of the future. So Kamir and Osha team up to find Sol and May. And back on the ship, Sol tries to tell May that her and Osha are not sisters, but they are. And as soon as he's about to give her the answer, May tases him as if she was like, wait, not yet. We can't say that yet. It was a little cheesy. But she gets on an escape pod and detaches from the ship. Chase ensues, and there actually is a really, really cool chase scene here with the area that this takes place in. It's like in an asteroid belt around the planet. It's actually really cool to look at. But Sol gets the upper hand. He's about to lock on to May's ship, and he's about to take a shot. And then Basil, the little otter dude, stops him. Why? I could not tell you. The dude was literally trying to capture her 2 episodes ago, and this made no sense to me, honestly. I don't know why the dude intervened. It made no sense to me. But they get caught in the asteroids. Both of them do. And they crash again on a planet. We cut to the Jedi Council, and there's a Senate member there. And he has heard about the rogue Jedi murders and the investigation going on. And the Senate wants answers on what's going on. But the High Council isn't giving any answers yet until everything has been dealt with, so they have a good story to tell. After the discussion with the Senate, we go back to Kamir and Osha, and he asks Osha if she wants to be trained. She says no. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. As she says that she will not join Kamir, the camera casually zooms out, and we see a cave. And a hand reaches out of that cave, and a hooded figure appears, and we see his face. That figure was Darth Plagueis. Now, at this point in time, I was actually losing interest in the show and wasn't paying full attention. I was texting a buddy during the initial watch of the finale, and I never noticed this. It's a very quick scene, and the next day, I talk to my buddy, I go over to his place, and he says, hey, who was that hooded guy? I didn't know what he was talking about. I rewatched it with him, that scene, and I lost my mind. I got so detached from the show I didn't even realize it, and I lost my mind because we're finally seeing Darth Plagueis in live-action Star Wars. But will it be what we want? Only time will tell. But yeah, that was kind of a big thing for me to realize as I became detached from the show at that point, at the finale. I really wasn't giving it my full attention. But let's get back to that finale. Osha leads Camille to Sol, and they are on their homeworld now where the witches originally were, ending the show where it began. Sol begins to fight Camille, and another great lightsaber fight ensues. Double lightsaber throws, force pushes, we get the works in this fight. While it's going on, Osha and May start to discuss their past. May reveals that Sol has been lying to her this whole time. May wants Osha to hear this, so May runs out during the fight as Sol holds his lightsaber to Camille. May walks out and gets his attention. May is able to get Sol to confess in front of Osha. He also shares that Osha and May are not the same person, but a virgins in the Force, split in two. Osha gets furious at Sol's lies because she finds out he killed her mother. She force chokes him and then kills him. As she does, Osha bleeds Sol's lightsaber to turn red. That's also the first time we've seen that on screen. But we do find out Sol turned his ship's beacon on before he died, so the Jedi Council members can arrive to start hunting them down for the third time now, with Osha, the once peaceful girl in light colors, donning dark robes, and her sister May, who was once the dark sister, now donning the more peaceful attitude and lighter clothing. Their roles have switched. Master Venestra arrives on the planet and immediately senses Camille, and he senses her. They know each other, and Camille gathers the girls to run. But they can't outrun them, and they need a distraction. May says she will stay behind so that her sister may escape, but if she stays behind, Camille is worried she will talk. So, he wipes her mind. I really don't get that. They just got each other back, and then she's like, I'm gonna let you wipe my mind so I'll never know you again. Bye. They just really wanted to be back together, and May was all revenge bound, but it just changed so quickly. And it wasn't like Anakin, whose attitude and like thoughts changed over the course of what, like 8-10 years, something like that. And May's was in like 3 days. That seemed totally rushed, but they needed the twins to switch roles, I guess. And to make May good, she was willing to sacrifice herself for her sister's escape. So once May gets her mind wiped, Camille and Osha are able to escape the council while they capture May. It's revealed that May only has memories of when she was a child, and she doesn't even remember that she had a sister. Master Venestra is going to use May to find Camille and her sister, assumably in Season 2, somehow, but we don't know how. Venestra then goes to the Senate and tells everyone that 14 years ago, a group of Jedi found a cult of witches on Brendok, and Sol killed innocents there. And then, out of guilt, he searched down the Jedi that he went with and murdered them, and then he took his own life, covering up the story. Then we cut to Osha in all black with Camille, and they kind of like hold hands for like 5 seconds, which is kind of odd, and then they cut back to Master Venestra walking into a Jedi's chambers, and the camera pans down. She says we need to speak, and it's the back of Master Yoda's head. So that was my takeaways of episodes 1 through 8. Now we're going to go over my thoughts on the plot, the acting and characters, lightsaber fights, and then just closing thoughts. So let's talk the plot. The plot of The Acolyte is not a big plot. It's about a girl being blamed for getting revenge on a group of Jedi who killed her mother, but it was actually her twin. 3 out of 8 episodes revolve around flashbacks, which for me was not that much of a good thing because it was restated information. A lot of these episodes definitely could have been condensed. Some people may say they want a long show to watch, but I'm fine with watching a limited series if it's 4 or 5 episodes, as long as it's amazing and a great show. The show overall was lacking in character development for most of the characters. They tried to push Sol, Osha, and May were the big ones, but we met Torben, Kalnaka, Yorn, and Jeki, and out of those guys, we really don't get anything. We'll talk more on that. The constant chasing in space for 5 seconds, then landing or crashing on a planet got old pretty quickly, I'm not gonna lie. That happened too many times in such a short amount of episodes. But hey, at least at the end, Venestra covered up what happened. So Ki-Adi-Mundi is still right. He doesn't know Camille was a Sith due to Venestra's cover-up. The show was to promise us more dark side lore and information, and honestly, we got nothing new. The Virgins in the Force, that had been done. just not with twins, I guess. We learned nothing new, or if we did, I didn't notice anything in 2 watch-throughs. So, unfortunately, the plot was lacking, and keep in mind, these are all my opinions. You can have your own, and I will respect it. I have no issues if people love the show, but overall, for the plot of The Acolyte, I give it a 5 out of 10. It totally could have been condensed into 4 to 5 episodes, honestly. Let's talk about acting and character. Osha and May, played by Amandla Stenberg. This was a hard role to play, let's be honest and get that straight. Playing off yourself when you aren't there, that's a hard thing to do. I give the actress props for doing what she could do in this role. I'm not entirely sure if anyone else could do amazing at something like this as an adult, but honestly, I liked Osha. I did not like May. Osha was more straightforward on her beliefs. We saw more of her character, so there was more development to be made on her end, so we saw the change from light to dark over a longer period. May was almost immediate in the last 2 episodes. She was bad all the way wanting revenge, and then she changed in the last 5 seconds. So Osha, I did like. May, not so much. But let's talk Kamir. Manny Jacinto plays Kamir, and it was a unique character for sure. He starts off playing a dirty street urchin looking guy, but then he also is trying to win favor of the Dark Master to be an acolyte, but then he is the Dark Master, and I loved this performance behind the mask. His fighting was excellent. I loved his performance on screen. He went from like a low-life, funny, greedy guy to this serious dark side user, and I did like that. Also, the voice modulation used when he wore the mask, I really like that effect. Let's go to Soul. Soul stole the show for me. They must have knew what to name this guy, because Soul is the sole reason I kept watching the show. Get it? Sorry. Lee Jung-jae, I believe, sorry if it's wrong, was my favorite part of the show, and I loved his character. The emotion that this guy brought and the skill behind the character was a cherry on top. I want to watch more of this guy's movies now. He did such a good job in this role. I want to see more. Daphne Keane and Charlie Barnett playing the young naive Jedi and Padawan were okay. Yord got pretty annoying pretty fast, and he was like a strict by the books guy, but when he did change, I liked him, and then they immediately snapped his neck and killed him, so that kind of sucked. And Jackie, she was like the nonchalant, kind of bland Jedi, but honestly, that could just be how she was told to act. That's not the first time we've seen a character act that way in Star Wars. I really liked the lightsaber fight. She put in the work, and so did Charlie, so those characters, they were okay. They tried to build them up, but then they killed them. So there's not a lot of room for character development when you're teasing that there'll be character development, and then you kill them. Rebecca Henderson as Vernestra. She was the Jedi Council member. She was the green one. I liked her on-screen presence, and I do really like how straightforward, and she's kind of like uptight, but she seems like she's always cleaning up people's problems and trying to fix things before they happen, which added to her presence of being like a high council member. She was almost intimidating in her presence. She also made the characters feel like she don't take crap from nobody, so I did like her as well. Even though I did enjoy certain actors, most of the characters in the main spot and the background, though, they were performances that were pretty bland or nonchalant, monotone people. I feel like they might have been told to act that way, and if they were, that's not on the actors. They were doing their jobs. You know, it's the same thing with Hayden Christensen in Attack of the Clones. A lot of people don't like the way he acted, but the director told him to act that way. So this is nothing on the actors. I think plenty of them are great in other roles, but in this particular show, I give the acting and the characters a 6 out of 10. And you can't have Star Wars without, and you can't have a Star Wars show with Jedi without lightsaber fights. I'm gonna touch on those real quick. These were amazing. I loved every lightsaber fight in this show, and they made lightsabers lethal again. Thank you, Kamir. absolutely brutal, stabbing, snapping necks, fast-paced lightsaber duels, and he was being super aggressive. Soul, I really like to watch him fight as well. It was all really, really good lightsaber fights. I loved it. Honestly, not too much else to say. Go watch the fights again. I give those an 8 out of 10. So overall, and again, these are my opinions, you know, if you have a lesser opinion or a more high opinion of the show, I'm glad that someone was able to like it. I'm sorry if somebody didn't. But overall, I rate the show a 6 out of 10. Is it the worst thing Disney's made so far with Star Wars? Maybe. But the overall show isn't finished yet. Considering there may be a season 2, and if there is, we can hope to see some actual dark-side lore and Darth Plagueis. But just because I think the show is lacking in an area, or other people out there do as well, does not mean you can't sit down and enjoy The Acolyte. There is something for everyone out there with Star Wars, and if The Acolyte does it for you, that's awesome. Remember, Star Wars is for everyone. I appreciate everyone for checking out this video. It's my first time doing a show review like this. It did take a lot of time, and if you enjoyed the video, it's appreciated if you could check out the other videos on the channel. I've done a couple reviews, and maybe you'll like it enough to subscribe. And again, thank you all so much for coming by, and until the next time, may the Force be with you.